Good afternoon. I'm Director Harry Stanabine, and I'd like to welcome you to the first Golf Committee meeting of 21-22. Before we go into any of the introductions and meeting, please silence your cell phones. For the people on the committee that aren't familiar with the microphone system, in the middle where it says push, if you want to speak, you push it, and then make sure you shut it off when you're done speaking. So we'll call the meeting to order. A quorum is present. All our members are here. First item of business is approval of the May 13 minutes, which were mailed out. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Tim?
Yeah, excuse me. Harry, I misspelled your name. I would like to see if we could get that corrected.
Trust me, it isn't the first time. We went through the microphone usage. I think the first thing is so everybody gets to know each other on the committee, that we'll each introduce ourselves and say a little bit about ourselves so we have kind of an idea who's who and what their background is. I'm Harry Stanabine. I'm from Bozeman, Montana. I'm a retired CPA. Started golfing when I was about 35 years old, and not a very good golfer, but I love doing it. And I was served on the Trail Ridge Men's Golf Club for about 5 years on their board.
Thank you, Harry. My name is Tim Hurley. I am also a governing board director, was appointed for a year, and previously served for 4 years on the governing board. I've been associated with the golf committee for about 5 years, an avid golfer. I golf 4 times a week when my golfing elbow will allow me. And I think golf is very important because it's the second highest revenue of operating income that Sun City West has, and I always try to bring that up. So glad to be on the committee again.
Paul Piper, I've lost my voice, so if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. I'm pending an operation soon. I lived in Sun City West 14 years. Pat's had to put up with me for quite a few, but Todd and I come from Colorado. And I was on the governing board, I was on the PORA board, 30 years Army, 27 years government, and then I retired. And I've been here ever since.
Hi, I'm Patty Strite. This is my 4th year, maybe, on the golf committee. I am the monitor for the Deer Valley Men's Club. I also run a group on Saturdays of ladies, and I've lived here for 15 years.
My name is Gary Giebelhaus. I'm from Nebraska originally. I've lived here permanently for 5 years or 6 years. I was on the golf committee back in 2018. Unfortunately, when Mr. Hurley got in charge of it, he didn't reappoint me, so I've had an absence. I'm back on now again, however. I was mayor of a town of 20,000 for 8 years, so I'm very used to running these kind of meetings and being televised, of course. I play golf usually 3 times a week, play all the courses. They all have favorite holes. I mean, people always ask me, are you very partial to one? I'm really not. I love them all for what they are. I play pickleball every morning, usually at 6 o'clock, and I bowl twice a week. So I keep fairly active, and I like to bug Pat once in a while because he's a Colorado guy and I'm a Nebraska guy, so once in a while we have some football to talk about. But thank you much.
I'm Tom Wolgemuth, originally from St. Louis. Now I've had a home out here since 2004, but I still go. Now I go back to Texas because of grandkids. I've been on the golf committee for, I think, 4 years, whatever we were, Patty. I think we went on at the same time. I play golf 2 to 3 times a week. I'm also a bicyclist, so I'm one of the ones you holler at about riding down the street. And I am a USGA rules official and have been for 20-some years.
Hi, I'm Todd Patty. I am from Colorado. I've been in Arizona for about 40 years, 30 of those years here in Sun City West, and I think I've been on the golf committee for 28 years now. Can't get off.
All right. My name's Patrick O'Hara. I, too, am from Colorado, Grand Junction more specifically. Married, 2 daughters, 37-year member of the PGA, 12-year employee. Wow, it's already been 12 years. Employee of the Rec Center. And I think Sun City West is a fabulous community, and they have it has a lot to offer, and it should be very proud of its golf offerings.
Thank you, everyone. The next, it says the committee roster handout. I think everybody's got that, so we'll move on to the secretary tasks and selection of secretary. I had a gentleman call me and said he would be willing to do it again, and unless somebody really wants to fight him for it, I'm going to let him be secretary.
Newcomers?
Well, Tim Hurley will be our secretary for this next year. Thank you, Tim.
You are.
Using BoardDocs, we, pretty much everybody has had experience with it or has talked with Karen, and I don't think we need to go any farther into that. So the next item is Karen with the review of consensus recommendation concept.
Yes, thank you. I'm the governing board admin, and I come into all the committee meetings at the beginning to review exactly what committees do in about 10 words. And this committee is probably quite familiar with the role of a committee, but committees reach consensus to make recommendations to the governing board. So they do not vote, rather they reach consensus. And I'm assuming that everybody here understands what that means. Consensus means 100% agreement. And so my quiz that I gave yesterday, in case you listened to that committee meeting, is what happens if you do not reach 100% consensus? Anybody can answer. We wish, no, not quite. So it's as simple as you revert to a roll call, okay? And so you can ask for consensus by asking for objections, and if there are no objections, by default, you have 100% consensus. But if you do have an objection or two to a recommendation that you're talking about, you simply ask for a roll call, and then you're looking for at least a majority of agreement, if not more, okay? So it's really quite simple. It's just we get a lot of questions about why it is that committee members don't vote, whereas the governing board does. And the governing board has the right and is allowed to vote, but committee members never do formal voting. They simply reach consensus. So thank you. Any other questions? No? Thanks.
Thanks, Karen. Next, we have staff reports, golf operations. Pat?
Put a few slides together, kind of give an overview of this summer. Obviously, this summer it's been warm. COVID has thrown a curveball that all of us are dealing with, but we're like all of you, we're getting through it. A couple of modifications, and we're hoping that we see the end of the tunnel before we see more darkness of the tunnel, I guess. So let's see here. So, latest changes to golf operations and the RCSCW, strongly encouraging face masks indoors. Our staff is required to have masks on indoors. We're trying to keep them safe. We also have plexiglass shields up at each of the point of sales. And we're encouraging everybody to keep 6 feet in distance and wash hands and just try to use your head and stay safe as best you can. We've been fortunate to have golf be the common denominator, if you will, through this COVID-19, and we're wanting to keep that intact. Tournament schedule, I handed out a yearly tournament schedule for golf ops. You'll see that this weekend we're having a 2-person best ball. 88 players are signed up to play. Last year at this time we had 64. We just started taking the entries for the 26th annual octogenarian tournament. That's going to be in October. We send out the entry forms 6 weeks in advance on each of these events. And currently, we're about half full with the octogenarian tournament. Rest of them, as you can see, we've got a couple night tournaments, very popular. Got a men's round robin, two-person scramble in January. We call it the Inglewood, California Bowl, which is in conjunction with the Super Bowl. And then we have the Sun City West Classic. New to the schedule will be our Skills Day competition. So we're hoping that we'll bring in some people that maybe not normally play in one of our events. This might be a little tough to read, but it's the new event that we've put out, and we're doing this primarily with the approval in conjunction with the men's regulation chartered clubs. So this is Deer Valley, Grandview, Pebblebrook, and Trail Ridge. They're going to send one representative from each of the courses to play for an overall gross title, and the first one's going to be November 6th, and we're going to do it at Trail Ridge. So this is something that the presidents and the boards of each of the clubs wanted to try, and we're going to see how this goes, and I think it's something maybe we could do with the executive courses as well, both men and women, and see if there's an interest there as well. Big news for us this year, our big capital purchase was 25 new golf carts. For those of you not familiar with our fleets, we have different size fleets at each golf course. The executives tend to be around 13 to 14 golf carts, while our regulation courses are anywhere from 21 to now 40 over at Grandview. The typical 18-hole golf course usually has somewhere between 72 and 80. But with all of our residents who own their own carts, we don't need that many. But we find during peak season that we're short, and we actually have to turn away business because we can't offer up a cart for somebody wanting to pay a green fee. So we're trying to alleviate that by expanding our fleet. So this year we expanded it by 10, and next year we're hoping to do about the same. Our challenge is storage. So we're maxed out at each of our golf courses as far as storage of golf carts. So we're trying to do the logistics of having a trailer and cart that can move these carts around and use them on a daily basis. So that was our big purchase. Delivered them over at Stardust, and then we broke them down and sent them to each golf course. Probably the next interesting bit of information is we're going to trade out our range balls from white to yellow starting after overseed. We find that the yellow are a lot more easier to follow in the both on the ground and in the air. And one of the things has always been a safety concern. Somebody hits a ball off number 1 or number 9 and it goes into the range, and they typically are playing a white ball. Now they're out there searching for a white ball amongst white balls. And so they have a good chance of getting hit, and we're hoping that this will help. A little known fact, 70% of all golf balls played are still white. So we're hoping to take advantage of that percentage and hopefully keep people from getting hit on the noggin out there. And then I threw this up, Todd and I, it was kind of funny. This was during monsoon season this summer, and we both got called to Trail Ridge for a tree down, and come to find out that not only was the tree down, this was over by number 10 tee box, it knocked out some kind of power box. Did we ever figure out what that was, Todd? There you go. But you can see it was across from the pro shop, and this is something Todd has to deal with annually, monthly, through these storms. And that's another tree that was knocked down, and I had a chance to take these pictures, and I said, wow, that's, for a storm, that's pretty impressive that it's knocking down all these trees. And Todd tends to find some and put them back up and has to deal with that besides maintaining the golf course on a daily basis. So just a small storm. This was something I put together. We still try to market Sun City West. Little known fact that the number one place people retire to Sun City West, where they come from is still Arizona. So we go out and try and do some marketing by the means of just informing people that we're out here. And one of the things that we did was we attended a 4th of July fireworks show over at the Arrowhead Stadium, and just kind of educated some people on where we're located and what we have to offer. So maybe that'll be a future resident down the road. And that concludes my report.
Yes, the question should, just for procedure, should I just address questions to what he's presented or other questions I may have for him or golf ops specifically? What is your way to run the meeting? I don't care. I
good.
mean, you have an item down on the bottom. Oh, he does? Oh, well, let me have at him. Okay, let me have at him on a couple of things. Okay, first of all, your golf cart procedures, I wanted to make sure of that because just today at Pebblebrook, when I was out getting ready, I heard two guys saying they were going to take their own carts, and the one guy says, well, we can't do that, and the guy says, yeah, because of COVID, we can all take our separate carts. The one guy says, no, I don't think so. So they trot into the pro shop, of course, and the lady that was on there says, we would prefer you didn't want to. So we're still abiding by our current rules, not the COVID
Yeah,
cart
currently,
rules.
we're trying to abide by this as best we can.
Correct.
There's always some different circumstances, and but eventually we're
But
working this
not
way.
because of how we were under COVID.
Right. So
Correct.
one of the way I'm asking my staff to handle it is, in my view, the pro shop counter is not a way to have a discussion, a heated discussion on cart rules. Just get the information from these folks, who they are, and pass it on up to us, and then I usually end up reaching out and calling them and saying, this is what we're trying to do.
Well, they went ahead and buddied up.
Good.
It was just the idea that I
Sure.
overheard what was going on. You know.
Sure.
So thank you. On the second point, on the yellow balls, because I wasn't here for that discussion, I assume you're not going to pay people to bring the white ones back that they have hidden in the garages and all that. You're just gonna wait for them all to surface to get rid of them.
I'm sure we'll see them eventually.
We
Yeah.
will see them eventually.
Eventually, and then
yes,
we'll take them out and keep the yellows in. So also on that footnote, if you know somebody that wants to buy 65,000 white golf balls, let me know, and we'll sell the white ones,
Okay.
slightly used.
And this was on the seed, remember that we have to buy seed for all the courses now that cost more, which I know is Todd's bailiwick, but I actually listened in that meeting because I happened to be in Oregon reading their local newspapers, and they talked about the seed shortages, and the governing board then had the special meeting. But my question, I didn't hear exactly. I thought it said to pay for the additional seed, it would take 2 rounds a day. Was that correct? Did I mishear that? I thought that's, it was a Zoom meeting, so I couldn't tell who was talking, of course.
Yeah, we did some very, very rough numbers with the hope that I was just talking to Todd about this prior to that, that some of the courses around us would not have the availability. I'll let him expand on what he's heard in terms of some courses that are cutting back but yes, in answer to your question, first of all, it was peak season only. And it was 2 rounds at each course for 3 months. Not necessarily easily attained, but it's our hope it's something that will come to fruition.
Okay, I appreciate, because I didn't hear the 2 rounds at each course, but being on this committee, one of the things I told Harry is before, I didn't come on to change things, but I like to be informed and dispel a lot of the rumors that are out there that we all hear. And so the snowbirds are all starting to filter in now, and these questions are going to come up. So I want to know the answer. So I appreciate that. My final one, I think, for you, Mr. O'Hare, is, and this is just a consideration of mine, again, with the snowbirds coming back, which are starting to appear, I would like to see some continuity at all the golf courses. And specifically, I'm going to say the condiments at all the golf courses, I would like them to be the same. I don't care if there are onions at no golf courses or at all, or mustard or ketchup. I would just like all the condiments to be the same, so I don't have to answer, why is this, why is this, why is this? And I don't care how it's done, I just think it should be the same. So that's just my opinion. I can't make you do that. So I just can't answer the question is, why aren't they? You know, that's the tough one. And so, thank you. Thank you, Pat.
Any more questions for Pat? Okay, then it's Todd.
All right, thank you. All I have today is just a reminder of the upcoming overseeding, which starts next Thursday at Stardust, Echo Mesa, Trail Ridge, and Deer Valley, closing on Thursday, the 23rd, and then reopening on October 19th, which is a Tuesday. Again, like we did last year, we're going to be closed for 4 weeks, and hopefully we will not have a cart path restriction on opening day, weather permitting. Now, if it's hot or we get some rain event or something to where it's too wet to drive out there, then we're going to have a cart path restriction, but we're planning on letting you out on day one. So, and then the other thing, at next month's golf committee meeting, I will have a presentation on all of the projects that were completed over the summer, the tee leveling at Stardust, the shoreline project, our big one over on number 14 at Trail Ridge, and then there was some grass bunkers we worked on this summer and a couple other little things. So I will have a presentation on that, along with the putting green, even though that was part of last year's project. We started that in May, so I'll have some information on that over at Pebblebrook. So, other than that, I will have also the summer maintenance schedule for 2022. I'll have that available for you next month. And that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Yes, I do. Just, first of all, of course, I and all these people, we admire what you do with what you have. So my first question is, how many employees are you still down comparably?
I'm about 25 full-time positions down right now, and that changes. Monday seems to be a real down day for me because people call in sick after the weekend or they take vacations. And I remember about 3 weeks ago on a Monday, we were almost 38 people down.
So what would you say your average has been during the summer anyway?
About 25.
Okay. So brings me to a point on, specifically on Deer Valley.
Okay.
Deer Valley gets ravaged by the storms,
Yes.
all the runoff, et cetera, et cetera. And years ago, when we had the, I believe it was the Legends Tournament at Grandview.
Yes.
Somehow or another, the troops were rallied to fill all the divots on the fairways, and I participated, I'm sure others did too. So could you, or do you even want to rally the troops to help you on Deer Valley on the cart paths to scrape off all the gravel and get it back into its areas, or is it a liability issue, or just,
I do think it's a liability issue. We are planning on bringing in some extra help during overseeding, kind of a temp service to come
Okay.
in and work on that kind of stuff and get the, kind of restore the desert, the washouts and some trimming and those kind of things. So,
Right.
as we get into after overseeding, things kind of slow down for us because we're not mowing rough, we're not doing the edging, the trimming, the grass slows down, we're not mowing as much. So we can kind of get by with fewer people during the winter months, but we're trying to get a game plan going into next spring, try to get some bodies in here, and hopefully we will. We have hired a few new people. Some of them work out, some of them last 2 or 3 days, and then they kind of disappear, and then we'll hire some new ones in. So hopefully we'll get through the overseeding, and then we can hire some new people next spring and try to get close to. I don't think we're ever going to be fully staffed, but maybe we can get a few in here. So I think those days of being fully staffed I just don't think that's going to happen. But hopefully we can hire some bodies and get them in here for next spring and summer.
I think, and I thank you, I think when a question comes up to me, which I just asked you, I for one would be glad to volunteer, I'm sure there's others, but I think the best answer for me is to say it's a liability issue mainly, and we would rather avoid having members out there doing
You know,
things.
years ago, I think the men's club on Tuesdays would go out and they'd fill the divots, and we'd supply the cart, we'd supply the divot mix and everything, and those kind of things, I don't think that's a big deal, having you out there doing that. But certainly wouldn't want you out there trimming hedges and edging cart paths and bunkers and those kind of things, and shovels and that kind of stuff. But-
Yeah, it was mainly to scrape the gravel off and get it back in the runoff areas and all those kind of things. If you
Yeah.
needed assistance, but
Yeah.
I understand it. I appreciate your answer. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.
Yes.
When you say you're 25 short, 25 of how many? What's max?
We have 199 employees for all 7 golf courses. And that's greenskeepers, that's mechanics, that's irrigation specialists, assistant superintendents, and superintendents.
So 200 basically is full staff.
No.
225.
No, our fully staffed would be 99 employees for all 7 golf courses. That's our staff level, if we're completely full.
So when you say you're 25 short,
25
you're taking
min-
25 from
off
the-
of
from the
99. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for Todd. Todd, have you gotten very many comments about that little parade device at the bottom of the flags?
I have. In fact, I was at a Grandview Men's Club meeting on Tuesday, and they were requesting that we take that out because it's hitting the edge. And I don't know if that's it or not. This time of the year with the Bermuda, it gets kind of ragged, and then those lips dry out real easily, and then that Bermuda grass kind of tears away. So I don't know if it's a combination of that and somebody pulling the flagstick out and then missing the hole and hitting the edge with that device. I suggested we go through overseeding and see if that's still happening on the ryegrass, because the ryegrass isn't going to do that like the Bermuda. It's not going to break away from the edges. So they were okay with that. So I would like to go, maybe a month or so after overseeding, and if it's still happening, then we'll look at taking that out.
I definitely think pulling it out, hitting the side of the cup does that.
Okay.
I've been golfing with people who just, they're pretty violent as they yank the
Sure.
thing out.
Yep.
And you can see the cups, around the edge of the cups, they crown up a little bit.
Yeah.
And what we've been doing is actually tamping them down after somebody yanks it like that.
Okay.
So I would support taking them out.
Okay.
Just a comment on that one, I play on Tuesdays at 6 o'clock in the morning, so my group is the first group out. And this time of the year, the edges of the cups are always ragged.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you have the,
Yeah, and again, I just think that's Bermuda, doing that, it's that time of the year. So, and I don't think we're not gonna see that on ryegrass and poatriv during the winter months, so. But I will look at removing those, but I think it was a big hit for a while, wasn't it? It seemed to like that, but if it's causing problems with the lip of the cup, we'll certainly take that out. I did have one more thing, if I could. I don't know if anybody would be interested in going for a tour over to number 14 at Trail Ridge before we open after overseeding. Just to do a walkthrough, and I can kind of explain, what we did and how everything came together. Okay. Is there a certain day that works better for, I know we wouldn't do it on Tuesday mornings or Wednesday mornings, but. Thursday? Thursday mornings?
It better be quick, because Thursday, Deer Valley will be playing, well, a lot of the men's clubs will be playing at other courses on Thursday morning.
Okay. I'll come up with the date and I'll send you an email. Sounds good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Just first of all, what you have in front of you is our year end through June 30th. July and August, they're still in production mode post our annual audit. But generally speaking, I'll be presenting those in October. Generally speaking, we did pretty well on revenues, and I think expense management, I suspect will be okay. I'm going to present only year-to-date, to the right side, if you will, of your presentation here. I'm going to do budget first. Many of you were on the board last year, so some of these updates are very similar to previous meetings. Down at the very bottom, you can see golf rounds Very, very solid performance, 36,000 more rounds, 12% against budget. If you do translate that up to the golf fees, you do see that that's up 250,000 at the very top of the middle column, the variance. That, of course, is a phenomenon that we saw throughout the year. At the very bottom, you can see our golf fees per round was deficit primarily, in fact, entirely due to the preponderance of discount card play that emerged in COVID era and restrictions even, or very limited amount of outside play for a while. But by the end of the year, this is the only time I'm going to reference the left side, June, and that you can see that gap started to close as $19.50 versus 20. That wasn't as big a gap. So I think things are starting to kind of come back into normalcy. Back to the revenues, ancillary revenue, for those that are new, that's primarily cart rentals and range balls. Those were extremely solid through the COVID era. A lot of ranges during my 2.5 years here have been, tee boxes have been, the range areas have been expanded and just they look really good, and I think that's paying off. The next two shouldn't surprise anybody. Our pro shops were closed for big portions of the year for merchandise and food and beverage, so no surprise there. So in overall, though, we did close 211,000 ahead of our budget. How well was expense management? I think one of you just referenced Todd on his staffing, and those holes in the staffing definitely played itself out predominantly in that 207,000 favorable variance to our expense line for wages and benefits. I'm very pleased with the expense management, but for landscape maintenance, and Todd left, but I've mentioned before that they had such hot weather and very little rain, it made for a very difficult transition. Last fall, that's when we had a considerable negative variance on that, and then also interest in financial expense, which is actually a good thing as well. Not that we ever want to be over, but this inspires that people are using the portal for using their card to pay for things, and generally speaking, it's hard to explain, but that's a good thing. So overall expenses, 377,000 below budget. When you combine the favorable revenue to that, very pleased to report a 588,000 golf operations improved operating margin. Kicking over to the right on prior year, the news is even better. Golf fees, first of all, on golf rounds, 16%, almost 45,000 more rounds. I do want to remind everybody before we completely think that that's organic, there was a 3-week period in late April, early May, where the courses were closed for COVID restrictions, so that is baked in there. But on golf fees, therefore, though, those rounds improvement and a 7% average, 7% rate hike generated almost $1.7 million more in golf fees. Ancillary revenue, similarly, 230,000, and then we didn't have quite the deficit of merchandise and food because we were, of course, having closures for almost 3 to 4 months of our pro shops in late 2020. So, moving to the expense side, of course, with some of the annual increases and overtime that has had to come about, that's just, generally speaking, a pretty good performance, though, because it's percentages-wise less than just a little under 3%, so that's almost to be expected. Utilities, a lot of that was generated by the extreme heat and lack of rain. And, of course, when you're generating that much activity in extra play, you're going to have more maintenance and landscape maintenance that I referenced earlier. The rest are pretty benign numbers. So overall, the revenues, I didn't mention the aggregate, but $1,935,000 improvement, offset by about $345,000 of expenses. So I'm very pleased to report, the golf ops improved its performance by $1,600,000. That's pretty much the summary. I'm open for any questions if you have.
Yeah, I have a question. So this is through the end of June?
Is
So this
June,
is essentially fiscal year end?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, my understanding is there's going to be some assistant pros hired for each course. Is that correct? I don't know who should address it, but anyway, that will start showing up when? I mean, that's what I guess I'm looking for.
So we've hired 2, but they're not golf pros. They are full-time employees. So one of the challenges that we have in the golf ops department is 95% of my employees are part-time, and that can be good at times. But from a continuity or a consistent standpoint, it can be challenging. So now we have a manager who might be managing 2 or 3 golf courses. Now they'll have somebody that's a full-time person at that golf course. And as of right now, neither one have been hired. They're not golf pros.
So wrong terminology on my part.
Right.
I mean, they're assistant managers?
We call them pro shop assistants. We had to
Pro
come
shop.
up with a title so that we had lead starters, and lead starters are part-time employees, so they will eventually, lead starters will work their way out as they retire, and this person will take over their duties as well.
So they're tell me what they are again,
It's
assistant?
pro shop assistants.
Pro shop
yeah.
assistants. So each course will have one?
Each manager, initially, we're going to hire 3 because I have 3 managers, and
Okay.
each one will be assigned to that manager. And it's kind of a position that we want to see where it develops into. So that, case in point, we have one right now, Tim D'Angelo, who came out of our accounting department, is working there, and he's going to be at Grandview to help with inventory and managing Grandview, but we're hoping he'll work into Desert Trails as well.
So what will it do to our overall cost of wages? Or has this been discussed before? Because I don't like to bring stuff up that
No.
has been, So what will it do to the overall, I mean, are you saying that we lose certain part-time people on?
Right, so right now I have 9 starters, part-time starters at each golf course. So I have 63 starters that work behind the pro shop counter. What we have done is created a full-time position, and we will eliminate some of the part-time help. So will there be an uptick? Yes, because there's benefits attached to this. But the majority of it will be coming from pay that's already there. We're just replacing 2.5 part-times with a full-time.
So again, for me to dispel any rumors out there, the question is why?
It will improve our efficiencies because, going back to the part-time example, one of our starters might be working Monday, Tuesday, but we don't see them until Friday. So there's 4 or 5 days where they might be off. Things happen in that environment that change every day. And now we either have to get them up to speed, or they don't get up to speed under our existing because the manager is off that day. So it might be a week before changes take place. Now we have somebody that is a go-to person on property 7 days a week.
So I need to answer the question when I'm confronted with it. It's going to improve our efficiency with a minimal cost?
Correct.
Would that be?
That would be a very good
Thank you.
overview.
Thank you,
yes.
Pat.
Follow up on that, Pat. What are the pros that we currently have? Wasn't that what they were doing? Of course, now they're giving lessons, so do they have time to do that? or-
Oh, sure. So, Tom, all of you are very aware of the pro shop environment. So each golf course is open 70 hours a week. And prior to our full-time golf pros, we were managing a 70-hour-a-week operation with a 20-hour-a-week manager. And we can't do that. And that's why we ended up going to full-time managers. We've been very fortunate that we were able to get PGA golf pros at a lesser amount of dollars than they would get in typical outside areas, with the understanding that these positions would grow. So the manager still is the person in charge. The manager also teaches, but the thing that this assistant will help is cover those hours that the manager isn't working the 40 hours. So we've actually benefited twice. The teaching of the golf pros is a profit center for the rec center. There's a commission structure. And down the road, I'll share you that information. We are making more money with the teachers now than we were with Reed West. So we've added to the bottom line through teaching with the existing programs, and now we've also got more coverage in the pro shop by full-time employees who can make good decisions on a daily basis.
Okay, but I mean, if you're looking at it from the outside, it looks like the pros that were running everything and doing it all are now teaching, so now we gotta hire full-time people to take their place inside. But that's what it's looking like.
That's not the case.
So Pat, where does that show up on the operating statement?
It
Ancillary.
would show up under wages and benefits as far as an
The
increase.
expense or the revenue, Tim?
The revenue.
Yeah, I thought so.
Revenue would be
It's-
under ancillary revenue.
No, thank you.
Moving on, we'll move into new business. The first item is review of golf policies for October 14th discussion. I think there's 8 policies. So for our next meeting, if you could just review them, and we'll go through them pretty quick, and if there's any changes maybe, or you got some questions, let me know and see, so we can move it right along in the meeting on the 14th. But I think we'll try and cover all of them, and I've read them once, and I don't personally see anything major that need to be done or changed. Does that sound fair for everybody? Okay. Next meeting, we're also going to do goal setting for our committee. So, what things do we want to set as goals that we want to achieve for this coming year? I talked with Pat when I first got back, and one of the things that come to my mind is the revenues were up well during the pandemic, and it's because a lot of people couldn't do anything else but play golf. So they went out there and they started playing golf, and the revenues have stayed there. So I think one of the goals that we should think about at least is how do we work to keep them excited in staying with golf, since it is the golf community, and we can continue that kind of a growth. And that's one of the things I thought of as a goal. And I'm sure there's a lot of other ideas, and let's just, at our next meeting, we'll kick those ideas around and come forward with what we want for goals. I'm not one that likes 86 goals. I think if we pick 2 or 3 goals, that means we've done a good job. Comments?
Sounds good.
Are there any outstanding issues that anybody knows about?
Not an
Yeah.
outstanding, but now you just remind me. The PAs go on October 1st?
We're looking at October 4th.
4th, okay. So going on what Harry just said, are the PAs going to take a aggressive stance or passive stance? What's, I mean, look, on Harry's, we want to take passive, but we also need to be somewhat aggressive. So.
Well, I think the thing that we've got to remind everybody is what is the purpose of the PA out there? And the three tenets that we hang our hat on are pace of play, enforce course rules, and then we also talk about light course maintenance. You don't go to the second one until the first one's finished. So if you've got pace of play issues, Rules, of course, are important, but pace of play supersedes rules, and rules supersede course maintenance. And, it's a challenge out there. We've got to remember that we've got 55-year-olds, 65-year-olds, 75-year-olds, 85-year-olds, and even 95-year-olds out there playing golf. So my goal with the PAs is I don't want the older golfer or the not as accomplished golfer to be bullied by people that might want to take advantage of them. So the 3-hour rounds in January are a summer thing. 4-hour becomes the norm, at least on the regulation courses. So,
Thanks, Pat.
you bet.
That's all that I have on the agenda.
I just remembered one other thing. I think, going back to the financials, I want to remind everybody that all of the contribution that comes off of the excess operating, this benefits and was part of the design of the rate hike, was that our course maintenance, repair, replacements, were seeing some inflationary pressures. And those funds all flowed into that, and there are other things. APFs did well, investments did well, the operating margin across the whole spectrum. But mostly, I will tell you, those that go to BNF next Tuesday will hear that golf made up 98% of the change year over year. Those helped improve our percent of reserve funds as far as the FFB, the fully funded balance, by almost 4 points. That's just very, very helpful. So I want to remind everybody that maybe there was some pain inflicted, but it had been no hikes for almost 3 years. And thank you to this committee for supporting that. With that benefit, we were also able to enter into this current year with no changes, partially predicated on the improved financial performance, but also on the rounds usage, and we certainly didn't want to impact that. So I just thought I'd communicate that, so thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, comments. Open for comments. Anybody have a comment that they'd like to make? Todd?
Thank you. I did come up with a date that we could tour over there on 14 at Trail Ridge, Thursday, the 14th. That would be right before we open. We'll be finished with the overseeding. We won't be watering or anything, so that might be a good time to go over there if that works for everybody.
Deer Valley will be playing on Thursday, October 14th at Grandview, the men's club.
Okay.
Anybody here going to be playing on Wednesday during that time?
I'm sure. Well, we could do Tuesday. I don't have to play on Ladies' Day.
Wednesday might be good, I mean.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Trail Ridge is playing over at Pebblebrook.
Wednesday, the 13th.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Okay, 8 o'clock? And
8 a.m.
we'll meet on site? Is that all right with everybody?
Will be the 13th then.
Yes. Yep, Wednesday, the 13th.
You said meet where?
We'll
Yeah,
meet,
just in the parking lot? or-
no, how about if we would just meet on site right out there on 14?
Okay.
Yes, 14 Green, yes.
Any other comments? Lisa? Well, if there's no further comments, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.